What's going on, Notre Dame fans? This is Tyler Horka. That's Kyle Kelly. We're back here on campus at Notre Dame where the Fighting Irish just held their second fall camp practice of the year. This one a little bit different than the first, I would say. It's hot. It's hot out here. We were just walking around looking for a place to do this. We ultimately settled right here in the middle of the lawn. Going to muscle through 8 to 10 minutes right now, but it was kind of tough for some of those players to muscle through, 90 minutes, 2 hours of practice today. Kyle, you said that you saw Billy Schrouth kind of walk off, and he looked fine, helmet off his head, but if you had to describe one word, it was probably hot. I think he was hot.
Hot, humid, sun is shining, scorching heat, sweat. I put a little tweet out. The temperatures are up and the water weight is down today. So that's certainly been the storyline for day 2 at Notre Dame preseason camp.
Obviously, we saw some other things as well. We'll start personnel-wise. KK Smith was once again the only guy working out in the pit, which is what they call the area that injured players kind of work out in while the practice is going on. But interestingly, I didn't see Deion Colzie out there today. Junior wide receiver, obviously, had some really nice catches toward the end of the 2022 season. But yesterday we saw that he was demoted to the second team. First team was Chris Tyree, Tobias Merriweather, Jaden Thomas. Chris Tyree, the new addition there. Deion Colzie was working as a starter in the spring for pretty much all of the spring. I'm not trying to speculate here, but, it could be an injury, it could be concussion, whatever it is. Deion Colzie just wasn't out there, and I'm just reporting that news. On the defensive side, you said you didn't see Jalen Sneed, I'm sorry.
No Jalen Sneed today. And, as we kind of walked in today, I was curious because yesterday there were no injuries besides the KK Smith. That was a little bit of a surprise. I was wondering who might be a little banged up coming into today. Obviously, you did not see Colzie. I did not see Sneed. And as of about noon on Thursday here, we don't really know what the outcomes of both those. It could be just banged up, missed practice, or maybe something else. So, didn't really see either of those guys today, but until we hear any further news, there's no really reason to speculate.
And this happens in fall camp. As you know, if you've watched us cover these things before, followed along elsewhere, as the days go on, I wouldn't say you start seeing guys drop like flies, but you see someone that's not missing, and obviously it piques your interest. And Deion Colzie was one of those guys last year. If you remember, for a good, I would say, half of fall camp, maybe even more than that, he was banged up with a knee injury, and that limited his production at the start of the season as well. So could be an injury, could be anything. Once we have that news, we will report it at blueandgold.com. Other than that, just some quick takeaways from practice. Marcus Freeman once again kind of knelt the guys down and gave a little impassioned pre-practice speech rather. This one a little more fiery than the other, it seemed, and it was a little longer as well. So he's clearly taking a different approach to these practices. I think he's more comfortable. He's more confident, kind of putting his own stamp on things. Just from a logistical standpoint, whether it was tied to that little pre-practice speech or anything else, what'd you kind of notice today, the way the guys were going through things?
Yeah, another interesting message from Coach Freeman today. Kind of wanting those guys to slow down, and maybe he had something to do with that. And we kind of estimated they probably only went 17 periods today, so that certainly could have played a big role. But just watching some of the guys go through workouts, I specifically once again paid attention to the freshmen. And yesterday I looked at a lot of the skill guys, so this time I wanted to see what was going on in the trenches, and I realized that a lot of those guys were moving a little bit slow. And Al Washington, actually, Notre Dame's defensive line coach, maybe altered Coach Freeman's message a little bit. He wanted those guys to pick it up a little bit. And during one portion of the individual drills, Brendan Vernon, a freshman, actually jumped right across the line of scrimmage right away, but the ball didn't move. And Coach Washington shouted something of the sort that, got to have mental toughness. And I think that was a big theme today for a lot of these young guys, was battling the heat, battling the humidity. Your second, preseason practice, there's going to be a lot of adversity. You're trying to learn the plays. We talked to Cooper Flanagan and offensive coordinator Jared Parker, the rest of the tight ends, afterward, and Cooper Flanagan mentioned how extensive this playbook is, how many plays they have to learn, the schemes. It's a lot different than high school. And then you get out here and you're playing against guys that have been here 4 years and might be in better shape with you, more accustomed to a lot of these things. So there is a little bit of an adjustment period, and I think you saw that today with a lot of the younger guys.
You mentioned talking to Parker and some of those tight ends, and you also mentioned mental toughness. I think that was a little bit of a theme of the post-practice press conferences today, and it kind of ties back into Matt Balis deciding to leave this program earlier this week. I asked a couple of the guys, Kevin Bauman and Eli Raridan specifically, what are you missing when Matt Balis goes out the door? And they both said he was awesome in teaching these guys how to be mentally tough. And that goes hand in hand with being a strength coach, because if you see some of the workouts that the strength coaches put these guys through, then you have to be mentally tough to get through them. But you got to be mentally tough when the guy that is putting all of that in your ear and building up your body to the point that you can go out and try to win 12 football games in a season walks away from the program. So I think mental toughness is a big thing. Matt Balis taught him that, and it doesn't just leave with Matt Balis. I think they're going to try to kind of play in his honor in a way. That both of those guys said, just because he's gone, his teachings aren't. So I think that was pretty poignant from the post-practice press conferences. Anything that Parker said or anything that Cooper Flanagan said that specifically stuck out to you?
Not a whole lot. I was just kind of jogging Flanagan's memory, I guess, and just wanted to build a rapport with him and hear, I guess, who he's built a rapport with so far in Notre Dame. And he mentioned walk-on freshman wide receiver Jordan Fiezon, who's also going to be a lacrosse player. I found that really interesting because I mentioned during my observations yesterday that Fiezon does not look like a freshman walk-on receiver. I thought he looked really great yesterday, and it seems like he's really gelling with a lot of those scholarship players right away. I've always been curious what that dynamic is like, where you have a highly touted recruiting class with guys that have the stars and full ride scholarships, and then you have some really talented preferred walk-ons, guys like Fiezon, and then Luke Talich from Wyoming, a guy that had Power 5 offers and chose to come to Notre Dame on a walk-on scholarship or as a preferred walk-on instead of a full ride scholarship. So I was always curious what that dynamic might be like, and it sounds like a lot of those guys are gelling, and that's been a big part for the freshmen as they've come in and really settled in. And kind of to that same effect, I also asked Cooper Flanagan about his relationship with freshman quarterback Kenny Minchie, and because I noticed yesterday there was a little bit of a miscue, and I was curious how much that has been a theme so far. And Flanagan mentioned that him and Minchie have been off the mark a little bit, and they're trying to figure out how to iron that out. So that's just one thing to, I guess, keep an eye on with some of the third teamers, is how they're going to continue to build that chemistry. We mentioned yesterday Braylon James and Kenny Minchie. It's on another tier right now. Now it's just trying to get on the same level with a lot of those guys. But those are the third team guys. They're not going to see a whole lot of time this year. It's going to be a lot of the Sam Hartmans and Mitchell Evans, Kevin Baumans, Holden stays. So nonetheless, exciting future for Notre Dame.
All right, you mentioned Minchie and Braylon James. I will end this practice report with those two guys. I thought that they had the best connection of any quarterback wide receiver duo today. Now, to set the scene, we're not seeing a whole lot of passes in these periods. Maybe Notre Dame's being strategic about that, not really showing their hand, so to speak. But we do get one full period, 5 minutes of quarterbacks just throwing to wide receivers. And Kenny Minchie put a perfect ball into Braylon James' hands in the back corner of the end zone today. So two freshmen, two guys who could be the future of this Notre Dame football program. I thought they looked pretty good yesterday. They look pretty good today as well. We will be back here again. Hopefully it's a little cooler, but I don't think we're going to be so lucky, for Notre Dame's third practice of fall camp on Friday. Until then, go to blueandgold.com. We've got all kinds of coverage from camp. We'll see you guys then.